Hi, this is Joshua Stolman from BrooklynComicShop.com, and I'm here today to do our first episode of Inside the Comic Vault, which is going to feature specific items from my personal collection. So I'm going to show you some of the things that I'm interested in as a collector, not just as the Brooklyn Comic Shop owner. And one of the main things that I enjoy is Golden Age art and signed comics, and I have some really interesting things to show you today. What you see right now is Batman the Sunday Classics, and it is a collection of all the newspaper strips that were featured on Sunday, which were usually the color strips from 1943 to 1946. It's a great collection. It's very affordable, and it goes on to give you an example of, or a biography of all the people that worked in the Bob Kane studio. Bill Finger, Ellsworth, Whitney Ellsworth, Jack Burnley. These are all the people that did some of these famous covers from Batman that also, because they were working in the Bob Kane studio, are part of that history of Batman. So it wasn't, even though Bob Kane signed his name to just about everything, he was considered the creative director, he was the owner, he was the person who was making the deals with Batman in regards to DC and those types. Here's his signature here. But the artwork was actually done by everybody underneath him. All the art assistants, all the artists. Dick Sprang, who is considered one of the best Batman artists. And this prints it not exactly full size, but pretty close to full size. So this is a regular comic book. This is the size of the Sunday Classics. Now this is a reprinting. I think it's the 2007 version. But the original version actually features a beautiful cover. And this time there is no Bob Kane signature. There's Dick Sprang, who was one of the original Batman artists from the 1940s and 50s. And you can see his Batman is like the barrel-chested Batman, the square jaw. Robin is a little bit more muscular. And these beautiful flat color design work is really something that's indicative. This feathering on the clouds is really indicative of his artwork. And for a long time, nobody knew his name because everything was signed Bob Kane because it came from the Kane studio. But in the 80s and 90s, there was a resurgence in interest in Golden Age artists. And Dick Sprang was still alive at that time. And he started to do a lot of commissions. And eventually was given some work at DC. He did pinups. He did some covers for Batman in the early 90s. And when this came out, he did the entire cover, which also features all the villains, all the original villains in that classic Golden Age style. Now, some of the other not Sunday classics, but newspaper classics were actually done as a retro art by Pete Poplawski, I think, who was a designer, and so he did some of the other covers in a Dick Sprang style, but this one was actually done by Dick Sprang. And the reason I'm bringing this up is to bring you to, while I enjoy the Sunday Classics, I'm going to show you the real reason why I'm doing this video, which is the Dailies, 1943 to 1946, done by the same people that worked in the Bob Kane studio. So it was done by Bob Kane, Dick Sprang, Jack Burnley, a lot of the people that worked in it. This is the dailies, so these were the weekly, every 5 days of the week, and then you had the Sundays. And this is from 1943 to 1946, which was coming out the same time that the Batman comic book was coming out. And just to give you an idea, the Bob Kane studio wasn't just producing Batman. They were producing... Each Batman comic book had about 2 or 3 stories in it, so they had to produce 2 or 3 stories for each Batman comic. Then they were also doing 2 or 3 stories for Detective Comics. Then they were doing a Batman story for World's Finest. And then they were also doing a Robin story for Star Spangled Comics, all in the 1940s, all at the same time. So it was a busy studio. That's why you had a lot of people working on Batman. And then to top it off, they were doing daily strips every day. And the Sunday strip, which was a large format, full-page, cartoon-colored comic strip. So there was a lot of Batman going on. And Bob Kane managed all of that, which is why you see his name on everything. This is actually, the cover is done by Pete Pawlowski, and I'm going to check his name just to make sure I say it correctly. But you can see it's still that very much that Dick Sprang style. And the reason why this is really favored by me, not just because of the content, because these are great Batman stories that were not published in the comic books. You could only read them in the newspaper strips. This was actually a limited edition that came in a leather hard case. And in really nice condition. And if you're angled down, you can see how beautiful the book is, front and back. And when you open it up, his name's Pawlowski. So there you go. And he probably, I don't know if he did this interior artwork, but it looks really nice. But more importantly, the book is actually signed by the studio, by the Bob Kane studio. Signed by Bob Kane, Dick Sprang, Jack Burnley, Charles Paris, and Alvin Schwartz. And so this is one of these rare times in the 1990s when Batmania was crazy, and there was so much demand for Batman stuff, and these people were still alive. They were in the twilight of their years. All of them died relatively after the release of this book. And in order to have everybody on one plate, this is actually a plate that they would send to, in an edition of 500, they would send it out to all the artists. All the artists would sign it, and then it would be placed in the book. Only 500 of these were made, and it's really a special item to have, where you have so many famous people that really made Batman what it was in its infancy to becoming a full-fledged multimedia brand, and you have everybody involved in that, at least from the artist's point of view, on the page. So it's a special thing. It's something that I really enjoyed and cherish a lot, and it's something that I didn't really know as a collector I would be ever getting. It's just as you grow in your collecting, your tastes mature, and these are some of the things that I really enjoyed, so I wanted to share them with you. But it's also a reflection of the kinds of things you can find on our website, brooklyncomicsshop.com, where we do have exclusive signed books. We do have Golden Age signed items, including comic strips by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster that are actually autographed by them. So maybe we'll do a special on that later. But I wanted to show you at least something from my collection to give you an idea of what are the things that the guy who owns the comic book shop enjoys. So thank you very much for watching, and you can always find us at brooklyncomicsshop.com.